The room spun violently as I gasped for air, my vision blurring, a sharp pain searing through my chest. My hands trembled uncontrollably as I gripped the edge of the dining table. My heart pounded against my ribcage like it was trying to escape. What was happening to me? Then, I saw his face, Julius, my husband, standing in the doorway with a look on his face I had never seen before. It was a cold, calculating expression. His usual mask of affection now replaced with something darker, something sinister. Julius! I choked out, my voice barely a whisper. He didn't move, didn't even blink. He just stood there watching me suffer. "I'm sorry, Kemi," he said, his voice strangely calm. "But I needed this." I gasped, a strangled sob tearing from my throat as my knees buckled beneath me. Was he really going to let me die? "Julius, you poisoned me?" The words felt impossible, but the pain in my chest was undeniable. He finally stepped forward, the coldness in his eyes never fading. "It wasn't personal. I just needed to make sure everything went according to plan." His words made no sense. My mind raced, memories of the past few weeks flooding back. The strange pills he had been slipping into my food, the way he'd been overly affectionate recently, as if trying to cover something up. Was it all a lie? I could barely breathe, but I had to know the truth. What plan? A sick smile tugged at his lips as he leaned closer. "You'll find out soon enough. But by the time you do, it won't matter anymore." I reached out a trembling hand, desperate for the life I was about to lose. "Please, I don't understand, Julius. I thought you loved me." He looked at me for a moment, his eyes flickering with something close to guilt before he turned away. "I did once, but then I found someone else. Someone who could offer me more." The final blow landed like a hammer to my heart. My own husband, the man I had stood by through thick and thin, had poisoned me for his mistress. For a woman who wasn't even close to me in every way I mattered. "Julius!" I gasped, the pain unbearable now. My vision started to tunnel, my hands slipping off the table as the floor seemed to rise to meet me. "I'm sorry, Kemi," he repeated, this time with a finality in his tone. "But you're worth more to me dead than alive." I didn't have the strength to scream. I didn't have the strength to fight. The last thing I saw before everything went black was his figure standing over me, motionless, with a cold look on his face. Then, nothing. But how did it come to this? How did I, a woman who had built a $900 million company from the ground up, end up lying here, poisoned by the very man I had trusted the most? Stay tuned. The shocking truth is just beginning. Before we go deeper into this chilling story, I want to ask you something. What would you have done in this situation? Would you have seen the signs earlier? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget, subscribe to this channel, like, and share this story with your friends. It's a journey you don't want them to miss. I woke up in a cold sweat, my body trembling as I took in my surroundings. I wasn't dead. I wasn't gone. I was in a hospital room, my arm hooked up to an IV drip. What happened? How did I survive? The door opened, and my sister, Tolu, walked in, her face a mix of relief and concern. She rushed to my side, taking my hand in hers. "Kemi, thank God you're awake. You scared the life out of me." I tried to sit up, but a wave of dizziness hit me, and I slumped back onto the pillow. What happened? How did I get here? Tolu's eyes flickered with a brief hesitation. She took a deep breath. "You were poisoned, Kemi. Julius, he's the one who did it." The words hit me like a slap in the face, but they weren't a surprise. I had known something was off, but hearing it confirmed, knowing that the man I had called my husband was capable of something so vile, shattered my soul. I swallowed hard. "I don't understand. Why would he do this to me?" Tolu sighed, her gaze dropping to the floor. "I don't know, but I think we're gonna find out soon. I've been talking to people. There's a lot you don't know, Kemi. Things you won't believe. My heart began to race as my mind went into overdrive. What could she possibly mean? What had Julius been hiding? I closed my eyes, trying to calm my breathing. My company, the thought hit me like a punch to the gut. I had spent years building an empire, a company worth nearly $1 billion. How could Julius have been planning this while I was blind to everything? You need to stay strong, Kemi. I know it's hard, but there's more to this. I'll be here with you every step of the way. Tolu's voice softened as she gripped my hand tighter. But as I stared at her, I felt a cold shiver run down my spine. Something didn't feel right. Why hadn't Julius visited me at the hospital? Why wasn't he here now, pretending to be the loving husband? Where's Julius? I asked, my voice trembling. Tolu hesitated before answering. I don't know, but something's strange, Kemi. He's gone. No one knows where he is. That's when it hit me. Julius had planned everything, and now he was gone. Gone with something far more valuable than I ever realized. The question burned in my mind. What was he really after? The harsh beeping of the heart monitor filled the sterile, quiet room as I slowly regained consciousness. My body felt heavy, as though I were sinking into the bed itself. My eyelids fluttered open, and I was greeted by the sterile white of the hospital room. It took me a few moments to realize I was no longer at home, no longer in the comfort of my own bed, but instead lying in a hospital bed hooked up to an 4-drip. I tried to sit up, but a wave of dizziness overtook me, and I slumped back against the pillow. My head felt foggy, like I was emerging from a deep, dark hole, and I had no idea how I got here. Kemi? A familiar voice cried, and suddenly, my sister Tolu was at my side, her warm hand gripping mine tightly. Her face was flushed with a mixture of relief and concern, and I could see tears in her eyes. Thank God you're awake. You scared the life out of me. What happened? I whispered, my throat dry and sore. I tried to speak more clearly, but my words came out weak. I looked at my sister, my confusion deepening. How did I get here? Tolu's eyes softened, and she gave me a tender smile, though it was laced with worry. You were poisoned, Kemi. Julius poisoned you. Her words hit me like a cold slap to the face. Poisoned? I felt my heart race. Julius, my husband? It didn't make sense. He was the last person I'd ever expect to hurt me, or so I thought. My mind began to race, and the fragmented memories of the night before started to resurface. The strange taste in my food, the strange look in Julius's eyes, the moments when I had felt so weak and dizzy before everything went black. But why? Why would Julius, the man I had loved and built a life with, want to hurt me? The questions tumbled in my mind like a never-ending waterfall, and I could feel my anxiety rising. My thoughts were clouded, like I was still trapped somewhere between sleep and reality. Poisoned? I repeated, barely able to grasp the gravity of what my sister had said. My hands shook as I pulled them out from under the blanket and tried to sit up again. But the effort made my stomach churn violently. A wave of nausea rolled through me, and I had to grip the edge of the bed to keep from falling back down. Don't try to move too much, Kemi, Tolu warned, her voice laced with concern. You've been through a lot. You need to rest. But I couldn't rest. I needed to know the truth. I had to understand what had happened. Why? Why would he do this to me? I don't understand, I mumbled, my eyes darting around the room. The walls were so plain, so white, like a blank canvas. I felt so out of place here, as if I didn't belong in this sterile, lifeless world. Why would Julius do this to me? Tolu sighed deeply, her expression turning somber. She glanced over her shoulder, as if making sure no one else was listening, before she leaned in closer to me. Kemi, there's something you don't know. Something that's been going on behind your back for a while now. Her words hung in the air like a storm cloud waiting to burst. What do you mean? I whispered, barely able to keep my eyes open. My vision blurred again, and I had to force myself to focus. Tolu was looking at me like she was about to tell me something important, something I wasn't going to like. "There's another woman," Tolu said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Julius, he's been seeing someone else. A younger woman. A woman who's more interested in him for his money than for who he really is." I felt the air leave my lungs as her words sunk in. My head began to swim with the overwhelming rush of emotion that flooded through me. Betrayal, anger, confusion. Was she serious? Julius, my husband, the man I had married and loved for so many years, was having an affair? But it wasn't just any affair. It was more than that. Tolu's words were cutting through me, one by one, and I felt my heart shatter with each passing second. "He's been planning this for months. Kemi," Tolu continued, her voice trembling with frustration. "He's been pretending to love you, pretending to care for you, while all along, he's been making plans with this woman. He wanted your company, your wealth, and now he's gone, Kemi. He's disappeared. Gone," I whispered, my chest tightening with disbelief. "What do you mean, he's gone?" Tolu's face grew darker, and she let out a deep breath. "After he poisoned you, he disappeared. No one knows where he went. It's like he vanished into thin air. And I'm telling you this because I don't think he ever planned to come back. He's gone, Kemi. And he took something with him. Something that's yours." A sinking feeling lodged itself deep in my stomach. Something of mine? What was she talking about? My company, my empire, my entire life's work? Was it really that easy for him to destroy? I blinked, trying to wrap my mind around everything she was telling me. "What are you saying, Tolu? What did he take from me?" I demanded, my voice shaking with a mix of fear and rage. Tolu hesitated, and when she spoke again, her voice was soft but firm. "Your business, Kemi. Your company. Julius. He's been setting up a way to take control of everything you've worked so hard for. He's been using you, your trust, your love, your heart, just to get his hands on it. And now he's gone, and he's probably already working with that woman to sell it, take control, and destroy everything you've built." My heart dropped into my stomach. My head spun. My breath came faster and faster. I tried to focus, to piece together the words she was saying, but it was like I was stuck in a nightmare that wouldn't end. This couldn't be happening. This wasn't real. My life, my success, my happiness, was all crumbling before my eyes, and I couldn't stop it. I looked at Tolu, my vision blurry, trying to make sense of her words. What do I do now?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Tolu sighed, her hand gripping mine tighter. "We fight, Kemi. We fight for what's yours. We're going to expose Julius for what he really is, and we'll make sure he doesn't take a single thing from you." But as she said those words, a chilling realization hit me. What if it was already too late? The room felt suffocating, the air thick with tension as Tolu's words echoed in my mind. Julius had planned everything. His betrayal ran deeper than I ever could have imagined. Not only had he poisoned me, but he had also been scheming to steal my empire, my life's work. Couldn't wrap my mind around it. The anger bubbled up from deep within, the kind of anger that made my hands shake, my heart race, and my thoughts blur. I had spent the last 10 years building a $900 million company from the ground up. Every decision, every risk, every sacrifice I made was for this company. It had been my dream, my passion, my pride. And Julius, the man I had loved, had been planning to take it all from me. It felt like my entire world was crumbling down in an instant. I took a shaky breath, trying to steady myself, but the reality of the situation was overwhelming. How had I missed the signs? How had I been so blind to the man I thought I knew so well? He had been so kind, so affectionate, so attentive. But behind that facade was a man who was nothing like the person I had married. "Kemi, listen to me." Tolu's voice pulled me out of my spiraling thoughts. She had been sitting beside me, her hands clasped tightly in her lap, as she waited for me to process what she had just revealed. You have to stay calm. We can't let him get away with this. We need to act fast. Her words made me pause. Act fast. What could we do? Julius was already gone. He had vanished without a trace, leaving me in the wake of his destruction. The thought of him, of that cold, calculating man who had once been my partner, made my stomach churn. But how, Tolu? I asked, my voice tight with emotion. How do we stop him when he's already taken everything? Tolu's eyes narrowed, determination replacing the worry that had been there before. We start by finding him. We track him down. We uncover everything he's been doing behind your back. He can't get away with this, Kemi. Not when so much is at stake. Her words gave me a small glimmer of hope, but it was quickly overshadowed by the reality of the situation. Julius had always been clever, always one step ahead. He had been planning this for months, possibly even years. I couldn't help but wonder how long he had been manipulating me, lying to me, playing me for a fool. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm inside me. We have to find him, Tolu. We have to stop him before it's too late. Tolu nodded firmly, her resolve strengthening. We will, Kemi. But first, we need to go over everything. We need to understand what he's after and how far he's willing to go to get it. I nodded, swallowing hard. Where do we even begin? Tolu pulled out her phone, tapping on the screen quickly. I've been talking to some of your closest associates, the people Julius has been working with. They've been telling me some things. Things that don't add up. I leaned forward, my heart pounding. What things? Tolu paused, her eyes flicking to the phone before meeting my gaze. Julius didn't just want your company, Kemi. He wanted to control everything. He knew that once you were out of the picture, he would be able to take full control of your assets, your legacy, everything. I felt a cold shiver run down my spine. My mind raced as the weight of her words settled in. Julius hadn't just been trying to poison me. He had been planning to destroy me in every possible way, to erase everything I had worked for and take it for himself. But why? I asked, the question escaping me before I could stop it. Why did he want to take everything from me? Wasn't I enough for him? Tolu's expression softened, her eyes filled with sadness. I don't think it was ever about you, Kemi. I think it was about power, control. The kind of power that comes with owning everything you've built. The kind of power he could only get by getting rid of you. The words hit me hard, but they made sense in a twisted way. Julius had never been content with what we had. He had always wanted more money, more influence, more control. But to think that he could go so far as to poison me, to kill me, just to take everything from me? It was beyond anything I could have imagined. We need to track him down, I said, my voice shaking with the weight of the situation. But where do we even begin? Tolu's face darkened as she tapped her phone again. I've been talking to people in your company. Some of them think Julius has already sold off part of the business. He might have already found a buyer. And I think I know who it is. The words struck me like a slap. Who? Tolu took a deep breath before answering, her eyes hardening with resolve. It's his mistress, the woman he's been seeing behind your back. Her name is Tara. She's been working closely with Julius for the past year. She's been helping him make moves behind your back, getting close to your investors, your business partners. And now, I'm afraid she's involved in the deal he's making to take over everything you've built. The name hit me like a punch in the gut. Tara, of course. She was young, ambitious, and most importantly, greedy. I had never liked her. There was something about her that had always felt off, like she was after something. Now, I knew exactly what it was, my company. I leaned back against the pillow, feeling a sense of dread wash over me. What do we do now, Tolu? Tolu's eyes burned with determination. We go after her. We find out everything she knows. If she's really working with Julius, we can use her to track him down. I nodded, the idea of confronting Tara filling me with a mix of anger and fear. I had never imagined that my life would come to this. Fighting for my company, fighting for my survival, fighting against the very people I had trusted. But I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to let Julius and Tara take everything from me. I had worked too hard for too long to let them destroy it all. As the adrenaline began to pump through my veins, I felt a new sense of purpose. I was no longer the woman who had been poisoned and left for dead. I was the woman who was going to fight back. And I wasn't going to stop until I had reclaimed everything that was mine. The darkness of the night seemed to wrap itself around me as I stood at the edge of the city, my heart pounding in my chest. I hadn't felt fear like this in years, since the day I decided to leave my small village and build something of my own. Now, here I was, on the verge of losing everything I had worked for, everything I had dreamed of, because of the one person I had trusted most, Julius. But this time, I wasn't going to let fear control me. This time, I was going to take control of the situation. "Are you sure about this?" Tolu asked quietly from the passenger seat of the car, her voice breaking through my thoughts. "Confronting Tara is risky. She's already shown she's willing to do anything to get what she wants." I glanced at her, the weight of the situation heavy on my shoulders. "We don't have any other choice. If she's working with Julius, then she knows everything. She knows where he's gone, what he's planning. She might be the only person who can lead us to him." Tolu sighed, the tension in her body evident. "I just don't want you to get hurt, Kemi. You've been through so much already. Don't push yourself too hard." I knew she was worried. She had been there for me through it all, when I built the company from nothing, when we celebrated victories, and when we struggled to get back on our feet after every setback. But this was different. I wasn't just fighting for business now. I was fighting for my life, my identity, my future. "We'll be careful," I reassured her, my voice steady despite the storm brewing inside me. "But we have to do this. If we don't, then we lose everything. And I'm not going to let Julius win." Tolu didn't respond immediately, but I could feel her eyes on me. She knew how much this meant to me, how much I had sacrificed to build the empire I had. It wasn't just about the money. It was about proving to the world and to myself that I could make something out of nothing, that I could build something that would outlast the struggles, the pain, the doubts. And now Julius wanted to take it all from me, to tear it apart, and I wouldn't let him. The car pulled up outside a sleek, modern apartment building, the kind that screamed wealth and privilege. Tara's apartment, the last place I ever thought I'd be going. I had never liked her. There was always something off about her, like she had ulterior motives. Now I knew what they were. She wasn't just after Julius. She was after everything I had built. And I was going to stop her. "We'll go in quietly," I said, pulling the keys from the ignition. "We don't want to alert her too soon." Tolu nodded, though I could see the nervousness in her eyes. "Just be careful, Kemi. This isn't just about business anymore. This is personal." I stepped out of the car, the cool night air hitting me as I made my way toward the entrance of the building. My mind was focused, sharp. I couldn't afford to lose my composure now, not when everything was on the line. As we entered the building, I could feel my heartbeat in my throat, each step echoing in the quiet hallway. My breath was steady, but the weight of the moment was heavy. Tolu walked closely behind me, her footsteps just as cautious. We reached the door of Tara's apartment, and I paused, taking a deep breath before knocking sharply. It wasn't long before the door swung open. Tara stood before us, her eyes widening slightly as she took in our presence. She was dressed in an expensive robe, her hair freshly styled, and there was no mistaking the air of arrogance she exuded. Well, if it isn't Kemi," she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "To what do I owe the pleasure?" I didn't waste time with pleasantries. "Where is Julius?" I demanded, my voice cold. "What have you two been planning? What are you trying to take from me?" Tara's expression didn't falter, but I could see the flicker of something behind her eyes. The game was up. She knew why I was here. She had to know what was coming. I don't know what you're talking about, she replied, though there was a hint of nervousness in her tone that she couldn't quite conceal. Julius and I are simply close. Nothing more. I wasn't buying it. You're lying. You've been working with him this whole time. You've been helping him take over my company. Tara's eyes narrowed, and for a moment, she was silent. Then she laughed. Softly at first, then louder as though my words were a joke. You really don't get it, do you, Kemi? She said, her voice suddenly taking on an edge. You think I'm after your company? No, sweetheart. I'm after everything you have. The power, the control, the status. You were always just in the way. Her words hit me like a slap, but I didn't flinch. I had to stay focused. You and Julius think you can just take everything from me. But you're wrong, Tara. This isn't over. She stepped closer, her smirk growing wider. You're already too late, Kemi. Julius and I have been planning this for months. We've been working together silently while you played the perfect wife, the perfect businesswoman. But the truth is, you're too weak, Kemi. You never saw the signs. You never understood who was really pulling the strings. I fought the urge to lash out, to scream at her. But I knew I couldn't let her bait me. I needed information. I needed to understand what they had done, what their next move was. What did Julius promise you? I asked, my voice quiet but sharp. What did you think you were going to gain from all of this? A company? My life? What exactly did he offer you? Tara's smirk faltered for a moment, and I saw a flash of something in her eyes. Guilt, perhaps? Regret? I couldn't tell, but it was enough for me to push further. I think you've been blinded by greed, Tara, I said. Julius doesn't care about you. He's using you just like he's used me. And when he's done with you, he'll toss you aside just like he did me. Her eyes hardened, and she took a step back. You think you know everything, Kemi, but you don't. You have no idea what we've been doing. What do you mean? I pressed, my mind racing. Where is he? What's he planning? She seemed to hesitate, a flicker of indecision crossing her face. For a moment, I thought I might have broken through, but then her expression hardened again. Julius isn't here, she said coldly. And as for his plan, you'll find out soon enough. Before I could respond, Tara slammed the door in my face, leaving me standing there in the hallway, stunned. I stood there for a long moment, my thoughts spinning. She had been hiding something. I knew it. But what? What had she and Julius been planning? And why wouldn't she just tell me? I don't think she's going to give us anything, Tolu said, her voice tight with frustration. I nodded, my heart heavy. No, but we're not done yet. We need to dig deeper. There's more to this. I know it. But as I turned to leave, a sudden, terrifying thought struck me. What if it was already too late? What if they had already executed their plan? What if Julius had already taken control of everything? The thought gnawed at me, but I pushed it aside. I couldn't afford to let fear dictate my actions. I had to keep moving forward. There was no turning back now. The silence in the car was suffocating as we made our way back from Tara's apartment. The sting of her words lingered in my mind, each one more cutting than the last. She had been so smug, so confident in her plan. And what was worse, she had been right. I didn't know everything. I didn't know what they were truly capable of. And now I felt as if I was running out of time. Tolu, sitting beside me in the car, didn't say a word. I could feel the tension between us, the weight of our failure to get anything useful from Tara. I should have expected that, though. People like her, people like Julius, always played the game with such precision. They never let you see what was coming until it was too late. What now? Tolu finally spoke, breaking the silence that had settled between us. Her voice was low, filled with worry. We didn't get anything from her, Kemi. Do you really think we're going to get anywhere with this? I didn't answer her immediately. My thoughts were swirling, trying to make sense of everything. There had to be a way to find Julius. There had to be something we were missing. But what? I don't know, I admitted finally, my voice tight with frustration. But we can't stop now. We can't just give up. The car pulled into the driveway of my house, a large modern mansion that had been my dream come true. At least it had been. Now it felt like a cage, a symbol of everything I had built and everything I was about to lose. I sat there for a moment, staring at the mansion's imposing facade, wondering what had happened to the life I thought I knew. Tolu seemed to sense my internal battle and spoke up again. I know this is hard, Kemi, but we need to think clearly. There's a reason Julius hasn't come after you yet, and I think it's more than just him being a coward. I turned to look at her, my gaze steady but weary. What do you mean? She glanced out the window for a moment, deep in thought. What if he's already got what he wants? What if it's not about taking control of the company anymore? What if he's already set up something, and now he's just waiting for you to disappear, for everything to fall apart on its own? I felt a chill run down my spine as her words sank in. What if that was it? What if Julius had already won? What if everything I'd built was already slipping through my fingers? We're not giving up, I said firmly, though my voice wavered slightly. I'm not going to let him have everything without a fight. If we're going to stop him, we need to start looking at things differently. We need to think like him. Tolu nodded, her expression one of cautious agreement. Okay, but where do we start? I didn't have an immediate answer. The truth was, I didn't know. I was out of my depth. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was fighting a battle I wasn't prepared for, and I wasn't sure how to win. But I did know one thing. I had built that empire. It was mine, and I would fight for it no matter how long it took. Let's go through the company's books, I said, breaking the silence. We need to see if anything's changed. If Julius has been siphoning off money, if he's been moving things around behind my back. We'll start there. Tolu's eyes widened slightly. You really think he's been doing that? I don't know, I replied, but I wouldn't put it past him. He's been planning this for months, maybe longer. If he was working with Tara, they could have been making moves without me even knowing it. We entered the house, and I immediately made my way to the home office, a sleek, high-tech space where I had spent countless hours overseeing the company's operations. Tolu followed closely behind me, her footsteps soft but purposeful. I sat down at the desk, pulling up the company's financial records on the computer. As I scanned through the pages, my heart rate quickened. The numbers were all wrong. Transactions that didn't make sense, accounts that I didn't recognize. It was clear that something was off. This is it, I murmured, barely able to believe what I was seeing. Julius has been draining the company. Slowly, quietly, like he's been setting everything up to fall apart. Tolu leaned over my shoulder, her face pale as she looked at the screen. How much has he taken? I scrolled through the records, my mind racing. Hundreds of thousands. Maybe more. This is just the beginning. The realization hit me like a freight train. Julius hadn't just been plotting to take control of the company. He had been systematically dismantling it, piece by piece, leaving me with nothing. This is how he's going to take everything, I said, my voice thick with anger. He's going to destroy the company from the inside out, and by the time anyone notices, it'll be too late. He's setting the stage for his own takeover. I slammed my hand down on the desk in frustration, the sound echoing through the empty room. My empire, everything I had worked for, was being destroyed right in front of me, and there was nothing I could do about it. But I couldn't just sit here and let him win. Couldn't. Let's find out where this money is going, I said, my voice cold with resolve. We need to track these transfers, these transactions. We'll start with the accounts he's been moving money to. We'll find out where he's hiding it, and we'll expose him. Tolu nodded, her face set in a determined frown. I'll get on it. I turned my attention back to the screen, my eyes scanning the financial records for anything that might give me a clue. As I followed the trail of money, something caught my eye. A name that shouldn't have been there. Tara, I whispered under my breath. It was her. She was involved in the transfers, her name popping up repeatedly in the financial records. She's been taking money from the company too, I muttered, my anger rising. She's been working with Julius every step of the way. She's been taking what's mine and building her own little empire on the side. Tolu looked at the screen, her face grim. We need to take this to the authorities, Kemi. We can't let them get away with this. I know, I said, my voice cold. But first, we need proof. We need concrete evidence that they've been stealing from me, from the company. If we can't prove it, the authorities won't do anything. I sat back in the chair, my mind racing. I had to be strategic. Julius and Tara had thought they were playing the game, but they didn't realize how far I was willing to go to protect everything I had built. I wasn't going to let them take it from me. Not without a fight. The night felt heavier than usual, the kind of thick stillness that presses against your chest, making it difficult to breathe. I had never felt so consumed with urgency and dread. Sitting in my office, surrounded by financial records and company emails, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was racing against time. Julius and Tara were already steps ahead, and every second I spent here, trying to piece together the shattered remnants of my life, was another moment they could be exploiting. I couldn't afford to lose. Not now. Not after everything I had fought for. Tolu had been working through the night alongside me, her fingers flying over the keyboard as we dug deeper into the financial records. The more we uncovered, the more I realized how deep Julius's betrayal ran. He hadn't just been siphoning money off the company. He had been selling off parts of it in secret, striking deals with shady investors, and shifting assets into accounts that weren't under my name. His plan wasn't just about taking control of the company. It was about destroying it in every way possible, ensuring that when the dust settled, there would be nothing left for me. I let out a breath, rubbing my eyes. The digital numbers on the screen were starting to blur together. How had I missed this? How had Julius been able to pull this off without me noticing? I had trusted him too much, too blindly. Kemi, take a break, Tolu said softly, her voice cutting through the fog of my thoughts. You've been at this for hours. You need to rest. But I couldn't. I couldn't afford a break. Not when there was so much to uncover, so much to fix. I'm fine, I said, the words sounding hollow even to my own ears. I forced myself to focus, scrolling through another set of transaction logs. But just as I was about to click on a new entry, the phone on my desk buzzed, breaking the silence. It was an unknown number. I hesitated for a moment, my pulse quickening. Whoever it was, they had to be important. Maybe they had information about Julius. Maybe they knew where he was. I picked up the phone, pressing it to my ear. Hello. A low chuckle came from the other end, followed by a voice I knew all too well. Hello, Kemi. It's been a while, hasn't it? Julius. My heart skipped a beat, and for a moment, I couldn't respond. It felt like a ghost from the past had come to haunt me, but I forced myself to speak. Where are you? I demanded, my voice steady despite the rush of emotions swirling inside me. What do you want, Julius? He laughed again, but this time, there was something dark in his tone. I think you know what I want, Kemi. I want everything you have. Your company, your money, your life. And now I have it all. I clenched my jaw, trying to steady myself. You'll never get away with this. I've already seen what you've been doing. You've been stealing from me, from my company. I'll make sure everyone knows the truth. Oh, Kemi, you really don't get it, do you? His voice was condescending, dripping with mock sympathy. You've been so busy working, so focused on your precious empire, that you missed the one thing that matters most, control. You see, I already have it. It's too late for you. Everything you've built is mine now. I gripped the phone tighter, my fingers going numb from the tension. "Where are you?" I repeated, desperation creeping into my voice. "I'm coming for you, Julius. You're not going to win." He didn't answer at first, and I could hear the smile in his voice when he finally spoke. "I think it's time you realized that you've lost, Kemi. It's over. Your company, your wealth, your life. Everything you've worked for. It's all gone." With that, he hung up. I sat there for a moment, staring at the phone in my hand. My mind was reeling, trying to process the words he had just said. He was right, in a way. He had already taken so much from me: money, resources, trust. It was clear now that this wasn't just about business anymore. It was personal. Julius had set his sights on destroying everything I had built, and now he was savoring every moment of it. But I wasn't going to let him win. I took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm inside me. I could feel the heat of anger rising, but I also felt the sharp clarity that came with knowing I had nothing left to lose. The games were over. It was time to take the fight to him. I turned to Tolu, who had been silent during the call. She was watching me, her face filled with concern and determination. "Julius just called," I said, my voice low but firm. "He thinks he's already won. He thinks it's over." Tolu's eyes narrowed. "What did he say?" I repeated the conversation as best as I could, and when I was finished, Tolu's expression darkened. "He's not just trying to take your company, Kemi. He wants to break you. He's playing a game with you, trying to make you doubt yourself." "I know," I said, a sharp edge to my voice, "but he's wrong. I'm not giving up. Not now. Not ever." Tolu's face softened, but she nodded. "So what's the plan? What do we do next?" I turned back to the screen, the financial records still open in front of me. There was one thing I knew for sure. Julius had underestimated me. He thought I would crumble, that I would fall apart and let him walk away with everything. But I wasn't going to let that happen. Not when I had a chance to take back control. "There's still more to uncover," I said, my voice resolute. "We need to find out who he's been working with. The people behind his deals, the ones helping him move the money, the ones who stand to gain from all of this." Tolu nodded, determination flashing in her eyes. "I'm with you, Kemi. Let's find them." I took one last look at the financial records on my computer screen, my mind racing. It was all there, hidden in plain sight, buried under layers of transactions and coded messages. Julius had been careful, but not careful enough. I had built this empire, and I knew it better than anyone else. I would find the cracks, the weak points. I would tear apart his plan piece by piece. "Let's start by tracking these accounts," I said, pulling up the list of suspicious transactions. "If we can trace where the money's going, we'll find who's behind this." Tolu immediately got to work, her fingers flying over the keyboard as she started pulling up the account details. The hours seemed to stretch on, each minute dragging as we worked in silence, focusing on the task at hand. The more we uncovered, the clearer it became. Julius's network was vast. He had managed to manipulate not just people within the company, but a web of external contacts who were now involved in his scheme. I leaned forward, my eyes scanning the screen as the information poured in. And then I saw it, the name I had been searching for, the key to the entire operation. "Found him," I said, my voice tight with disbelief. "He's been working with Frank Mitchell." Tolu looked up at the name on the screen, her expression one of shock. "Frank Mitchell? The investor." "The very same," I said, my mind racing. "He's been funneling money to Julius through several off-the-books accounts. He's been in this from the beginning." Tolu's face hardened. "Then we need to get to him. He's the one who's been helping Julius build this empire on the side. He's the key to everything." I nodded, a feeling of certainty settling in my gut. "We need to find him, and we need to do it fast. Julius won't stop. He'll keep pushing until there's nothing left of me, nothing left of my company." And that's when it hit me. If I was going to beat Julius, if I was going to take back what was mine, I had to be ready to fight dirty. Couldn't hold back anymore. It was time to play the game on my terms. The weight of the next few hours pressed down on me with suffocating intensity. The air felt thick, almost too still, as if the entire world was holding its breath, waiting for something to snap. My mind was whirling, but there was no time for doubt, no time for fear. I had already lost so much, and I wasn't about to let Julius and his allies strip me of the last thing I had left, my future. Tolu and I were sitting in the living room of my house, the faint hum of the air conditioning the only sound breaking the silence. The walls, once filled with the warmth of happy memories, now felt cold and sterile. My company, my legacy, was at risk of slipping through my fingers. "We need to move fast," I said, my voice steady, though my insides were churning with anxiety. "Frank Mitchell is the key. If we can get him, we can stop Julius." Tolu nodded, her eyes sharp with determination. "What's the plan, Kemi?" "I don't have all the answers yet," I replied, taking a deep breath. "But I do know that Frank Mitchell isn't just some random investor. He's connected and he's powerful. If Julius was working with him, he's probably got the resources and contacts we need to trace him down." Tolu looked at me, a mixture of concern and resolve in her eyes. "You know it's not going to be easy, right? Frank Mitchell isn't exactly an open book. He'll be well protected." "I know," I said, clenching my fists. "But we can't waste any more time. I need to know where he is. We need to find him before Julius does any more damage." We sat in silence for a moment, the enormity of the situation settling over us. My thoughts were racing, each second more crucial than the last. The urgency of it all, the desperation, made everything feel like it was spiraling out of control. "I'll make some calls," Tolu said, breaking the silence. "We might be able to get information from some of your business contacts. Maybe they know where Frank has been hiding out. We'll have to keep it quiet, though. If Julius finds out we're looking for Frank, it'll only make things harder." "Good idea," I said, nodding in agreement. "We'll keep this between us for now. No one else can know what we're planning. If word gets out, it could ruin everything." We spent the next few hours quietly working, calling a few key contacts in the business world. But as much as we tried, every lead came up dry. Frank Mitchell was like a ghost. No one had seen him in weeks, and every time we thought we were getting close, the trail would go cold. By midnight, exhaustion had begun to set in. Tolu had long since stopped speaking, her eyes tired, her fingers typing away on the laptop. But then, just as I was about to give up, my phone rang. I froze when I saw the name on the screen. "Frank Mitchell?" I whispered, barely believing my eyes. Tolu's head snapped up at the mention of his name. "Answer it, Kemi. This could be it." I took a deep breath, trying to steady my nerves before answering. "Hello." The voice on the other end was low, controlled, and entirely too calm. "Kemi, I figured you'd come looking for me sooner or later." My stomach tightened, a mix of fear and excitement coursing through me. "Where are you, Frank? I need to talk to you." He chuckled softly. "Talk? Or is this another attempt to confront me about Julius's little scheme?" "I'm not here to play games," I said, my voice sharp. "You've been helping him destroy my company. I want to know why. I want to know how deep this goes." There was a pause on the other end. I could practically hear him weighing his options, deciding whether or not he would humor me. Then he spoke again, his voice darker this time. "You really don't understand, do you, Kemi?" Frank said, his words dripping with condescension. "This was never about you. It was always about power. Julius understood that. You were just in the way." "Power," I repeated, the word feeling heavy in my mouth. "You've been helping him tear everything I've built apart, and you think it's about power?" "Yes," Frank said, his tone growing colder. "You're just a pawn in a much bigger game. You were never meant to succeed, Kemi. Julius and I were always going to be the ones pulling the strings. And now, with you out of the way, everything will fall into place. Anger surged through me, and I had to bite my lip to keep from shouting. You're wrong. I won't let you or Julius destroy everything I've worked for. I'm going to stop you. Frank laughed softly, almost pityingly. You think you can stop me? You're already too late. Julius has already made his moves. There's nothing left for you to do except watch as everything falls apart. I'm coming for you, Frank, I said, my voice steady, even as my insides were on fire with fury. You're going to pay for what you've done, and I'll make sure everyone knows the truth. Good luck, Kemi, Frank replied, his voice cold. You'll need it. The line went dead. I lowered my phone, staring at the screen for a long moment. The words he had said echoed in my mind, each one like a cold slap to the face. But even as the reality of the situation began to settle in, one thing was clear to me. Frank and Julius had made a grave mistake. They had underestimated me. Tolu was watching me closely, her eyes full of questions. What did he say? I looked at her, my eyes hardening with resolve. He's been working with Julius from the start. This was never about business for him. It was always about power. He thinks he's already won. But he's wrong. This fight isn't over. Tolu nodded, determination flashing in her eyes. We need to find out where he is, Kemi. If he's already been in contact with Julius, they've probably got a plan in place. We need to stop them. I stood up, the adrenaline surging through me. We're not going to sit around and wait. We're going after Frank. We need to find out where he's hiding, and we need to do it fast. Tolu grabbed her phone, already dialing contacts, as I paced the room. The call from Frank had done something to me. It had ignited a fire that I didn't know I had left. He was right about one thing. This wasn't just about my company anymore. This was personal. They had gone too far. And now it was my turn to take control of the situation. You know, Frank might not be as untouchable as he thinks, Tolu said as she hung up the phone. I think I know someone who might be able to track his movements. Do it? I said, my voice firm. We don't have time to waste. Tolu's face lit up with a smile. I'll see what I can do. We'll find him, Kemi. We're not letting them get away with this. I nodded, my mind racing. I had lost too much already, and I wouldn't let Julius and Frank strip away the one thing that mattered most. My life, my legacy, my future. Everything I had worked for was on the line. I wasn't going to lose. Not now. Not ever. The following days felt like a blur, each minute stretching into an eternity as we closed in on Frank Mitchell. The fear that had plagued me since Julius's betrayal had turned into something else, something fiercer. Determination, a resolve to stop them before they could destroy everything I had worked for. But even as the pieces started to fall into place, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. Frank Mitchell and Julius were powerful, and they weren't going to let me slip through their fingers so easily. Every move I made, every lead I followed, seemed to be met with another dead end. Tolu and I had been working tirelessly, making calls, gathering information, trying to find any trace of Frank Mitchell's whereabouts. It wasn't just a game of catching a thief anymore. It was a race against time. If I didn't act quickly, everything I had built would be reduced to dust. By now, we had managed to track Frank to an upscale estate on the outskirts of the city. It was the kind of place only someone with money and power could afford, secluded, heavily guarded, and well protected. Frank wasn't making it easy, but I had no intention of backing down. This is it, Kemi? Tolu said, her voice taut with anticipation as she looked at the address on her phone. We've got him. I could feel my heart thudding in my chest, my pulse racing with a mix of fear and adrenaline. The estate sat on a hill, the sprawling grounds surrounded by tall iron gates, heavy security cameras, and a perimeter that seemed impossible to breach. Frank knew what he was doing. He wasn't just hiding. He was fortifying his position, setting himself up as untouchable. But I wasn't about to let him get away. "Are you sure about this?" Tolu asked, her voice filled with concern. "This is risky, Kemi. He won't make it easy." I turned to her, my face set in determination. "We don't have a choice. He's been helping Julius tear down everything I've worked for. We've tracked him to this place for a reason. It's time we make our move." Tolu sighed, running a hand through her hair. "I'm with you, but we need to be careful. If we're wrong about this, it could mean everything." I nodded. "We're not wrong. I've been studying everything, Tolu. The records, the money trails, everything points to him. Frank Mitchell is the key. If we find him, we find out everything we need to stop Julius." With that, we gathered what we needed. A few essentials, my laptop, and a small tracking device that we could slip into Frank's security system. Tolu had managed to get us access to a network of hackers, and I wasn't about to waste the opportunity. We had only one shot at this, and I wasn't going to miss it. We parked the car a distance away from the estate, out of sight from the security cameras, and crept through the shadows. The night was eerily quiet, and every movement felt amplified, as though the entire world was holding its breath. I kept my focus sharp, watching the security guards as they patrolled the perimeter. "Ready," Tolu whispered, glancing over at me. I nodded, my heart pounding in my chest. This was it. There would be no turning back now. We moved quickly, slipping between the trees and shadows, avoiding the guards' gaze. I had spent years managing my company with precision, and that skill was serving me well now. Every step, every movement was calculated. I wasn't going to let fear take over. I had come too far to stop now. We reached the back of the estate, where the security system was weakest. I held my breath as I set the device into place, allowing it to connect with the estate's network. The system was sophisticated but not invulnerable. We had to move fast. 5 minutes, Tolu said, her voice low. "If this works, we'll be able to track his every move." I nodded, glancing at the tall, imposing house in the distance. I could feel the weight of the mission bearing down on me, the knowledge that every second mattered. "Let's go," I whispered. We moved quickly across the estate, our footsteps muffled by the thick grass. I could see the mansion looming ahead, the lights glowing faintly from inside. This was where Frank was hiding. This was where the answers were, and it was time to get them. We reached the back door, and I looked over at Tolu. "You ready?" Tolu met my gaze, her face set with determination. "Let's do this." I took a deep breath and grabbed the door handle. It was locked, of course, but that didn't matter. I had prepared for this. I pulled out a small lock pick from my bag and expertly worked on the door, the familiar motions coming instinctively to me. The door clicked open. I gave Tolu a quick nod, and we slipped inside. The interior was just as I expected. Luxurious, cold, and impersonal. Expensive furniture, polished floors, and artwork that screamed money. But none of it mattered. The only thing I cared about now was finding Frank Mitchell and taking back control. We moved through the house quietly, our footsteps barely audible on the marble floors. The silence was deafening, but it didn't stop me from focusing on the task at hand. We were getting closer. Suddenly, I heard a sound. Footsteps. My heart skipped a beat. Someone was coming. I motioned for Tolu to hide, and we quickly ducked behind a large vase. I held my breath as the footsteps grew louder, closer. Then, just as the person was about to turn the corner, I saw him. Frank Mitchell. He was standing at the end of the hallway, looking down at something in his hands. His back was turned to us, but he was close. Too close. I felt my pulse quicken as I realized that this was our moment. If we didn't act now, we might lose him forever. Tolu's eyes locked onto mine, and I could see the resolve in her face. We didn't have time to waste. I made my move first, stepping out from behind the vase. I moved quickly, silently, approaching Frank from behind. He didn't hear me coming, I was so close now, too close for him to react. "Frank!" I shouted, my voice filled with fury. He spun around, his eyes widening in surprise, but it was too late. I was already in front of him, blocking his path. Tolu stood beside me, her face filled with the same determination that burned inside me. "What the hell are you doing here?" Frank demanded, his voice icy, but there was a hint of panic in his eyes. "How did you find me?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. All I needed was the truth, and I wasn't going to let him leave without giving it to me. "I'm done being your pawn, Frank," I said, my voice cold as steel. "Now you're going to tell me everything. Everything you and Julius have been planning. And you're going to do it now." Frank's eyes flickered between me and Tolu, the tension thick in the air. I could see him weighing his options. But there was no escape. He was cornered, and he knew it. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, he spoke. "You think you're going to stop this? You think you can undo what's been set in motion?" He sneered, but there was something else in his voice now, something almost like fear. "You're too late, Kemi. Julius and I have already won." I took a step forward, my voice low and dangerous. "Tell me what you've done, Frank. Tell me how you're going to destroy my company." Frank hesitated, his eyes darting to the door, to the windows. But there was nowhere to run. He was trapped. "You want the truth?" he said, his voice shaking slightly. "Julius and I have been playing this game for years. You were never meant to succeed. You were just a means to an end. And now that you're out of the picture, we can finally take control. Your company, your wealth, it's all ours." I shook my head, my fury rising. "You're wrong, Frank. I'm not out of the picture. And I'm not going to let you get away with this." And just like that, the battle for everything I had built began. The fight wasn't over yet. It was only just beginning. The air in Frank's estate felt thick with tension. Each breath I took heavy with the realization of how close we were to uncovering the full extent of Julius and Frank's treachery. I could hear the rush of blood in my ears, the weight of every second that ticked away. Frank stood before us, his confidence crumbling with every word, his facade cracking under the pressure. "You think you've won, Kemi?" he sneered, his voice dripping with disdain. "You think exposing me, exposing Julius, will change anything? The truth is, you're already too late. It's already over. You've been played from the beginning." His words struck me like a slap, and for a moment, I felt a cold rush of doubt wash over me. But then I looked at Tolu, and the fire in her eyes mirrored my own. We weren't going to back down now. We had come too far. I stepped closer, forcing my voice to steady. "No, Frank, you're wrong. It's not over. We're just getting started." Frank's lips curled into a smirk, but there was an edge of panic in his eyes now, a flicker of uncertainty. It was a crack I intended to exploit. "You think you're going to stop Julius and me by confronting me like this?" he scoffed. "You have no idea what you're up against. You have no idea what's coming." I took a deep breath, pushing the anger aside to focus on the truth, on everything I needed to know in order to take control of this situation. "Tell me what's coming, Frank," I said, my voice tight with frustration. "Tell me everything. Why destroy me? Why take everything from me?" Frank hesitated, his eyes darting to the door again, as though he were still considering his options. But then, the air between us seemed to shift. He was no longer the calm, calculating man he had been moments ago. He was cornered, trapped in a lie he could no longer maintain. "Julius and I," he trailed off, his voice faltering slightly. "You never understood the game we were playing, did you, Kemi? It was never about you. It was about the power that came with owning everything you've built. And we were going to have it all. The company, the money, the influence. You were just a stepping stone, a means to an end." The words hit me hard, each one a blow to the heart. My mind raced as I pieced together the shattered pieces of the past few months. Frank and Julius had been playing me for a fool, manipulating me, hiding in the shadows, pulling the strings. They never cared about me. Not really. But the more he spoke, the more it became clear. They had underestimated me. So, this is about control, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. You wanted to control everything. You wanted what was mine. And you were willing to destroy it all to get it. Frank's smirk returned, a twisted expression of satisfaction. Exactly. You were always too naive to see it. Julius knew how to play the game. He knew how to get to the top. And now that you're out of the picture, we'll finally have what we wanted all along. Tolu's eyes burned with fury beside me, her body tense as she processed Frank's words. But I wasn't going to let him bait me into another outburst. I had to stay focused. I took another step forward, my voice calm but deadly. You're wrong, Frank. You think you've won. But you've made a huge mistake. You've underestimated me. I'm not going down without a fight. For the first time, Frank's composure faltered. You think you can stop us? You think you can stop me? His voice rose in anger, his eyes flashing with desperation. You're just a woman fighting a losing battle. Julius and I have already won, and there's nothing you can do about it. I leaned in closer, my words slicing through the air. I'm not just a woman, Frank. I'm the woman who built everything you've been trying to destroy. And I will burn your empire to the ground if that's what it takes. The words hung in the air between us like a challenge. For a moment, Frank stood frozen, his eyes searching mine as though trying to decide whether to call my bluff. But I could see it in his face. He knew he was losing. His carefully constructed world of power and control was crumbling around him, and I was just beginning to break it apart. Tolu stepped forward, her voice steady. Kemi's right. You've made a grave mistake. We have everything we need to bring you down. And we will. Frank's face twisted in anger, but beneath the rage, there was something else, fear. He realized he was losing, and that realization had cracked his mask of confidence. You think you've won, but you're wrong, Frank muttered, his voice shaking with a mix of frustration and anger. You don't understand what you're dealing with. Julius isn't the only one with power. We have resources, connections, people you can't even begin to imagine. I felt my heart race, but I didn't flinch. We don't need your resources, Frank. We don't need your connections. We have something better. The truth. For a long moment, Frank just stared at me, his breathing shallow. And then, as if a switch had been flipped, he straightened up, his eyes hardening with resolve. You'll regret this, he spat, his voice dripping with venom. You have no idea what you're getting yourself into. I took a step back, my gaze never leaving his. I'm not afraid of you, Frank, and I'm not afraid of Julius. You can't scare me anymore. Before Frank could respond, there was a sudden noise behind us. The unmistakable sound of a door opening. I whirled around, my body tensing instinctively. A figure appeared in the doorway, someone I hadn't expected to see. Julius, the man who had once been my partner, my husband, stood there, his eyes cold and calculating. He wasn't alone. A few armed men flanked him, their eyes scanning the room. Julius, I said, my voice filled with equal parts rage and disbelief. You've been here all along, haven't you? Julius stepped forward, a faint, almost pitying smile on his lips. I knew you'd come for him, Kemi, but you're too late. Frank's right. This is over. We've already won. I took a step toward him, my heart pounding in my chest. No, Julius. It's not over. It never was. You may have thought you could destroy me, but you didn't count on one thing. And what's that? He asked, his voice dripping with arrogance. That I would fight back, I said, my voice steady. That I would never let you take everything from me without a fight. Julius's smile faded, replaced by a cold, hard expression. You think you can stop me? You're nothing. You never were. You were just a tool I used to get what I wanted. And now you're nothing but a liability. I could feel the anger bubbling up again, but I forced it down. I'm not a liability, Julius. I'm your worst nightmare. Tolu stepped forward beside me, her voice calm but full of resolve. And we're not going to let you destroy everything Kemi has built. It's over. Julius's eyes flickered with uncertainty, but he quickly regained his composure. You think you can take me down? You think you can just walk away from this? We're not walking away from anything, I said, my voice fierce. You're going to pay for everything you've done. For a moment, Julius seemed to waver, as though considering his next move. But I knew him. I knew the games he played, and I wasn't going to let him manipulate me any longer. You've lost, Julius, I said, my voice low and deadly, and I'm going to make sure you pay for it. He stared at me for a long moment, his expression unreadable. And then, with a final angry snarl, he motioned for his men to move forward. But before they could act, I turned to Tolu. Now, I whispered, and with that, everything changed. The atmosphere in the room was suffocating. It felt as if the walls were closing in, tightening around me with each passing second. Julius's men moved forward, their eyes cold and determined, but something had shifted. They weren't the only ones in the room anymore. Tolu and I stood our ground, side by side, refusing to be intimidated. This was the moment we had been waiting for. I could feel the heat of anger and adrenaline coursing through me, each muscle taut with the energy of a battle that had been brewing for months. I had been poisoned, manipulated, and betrayed by the two people I had trusted most. But now I was no longer a pawn in their game. I was the one calling the shots. Julius's men, though armed and well-trained, faltered for just a moment, just long enough for me to see the uncertainty in their eyes. They weren't used to this. They weren't used to being challenged. Move, Julius said, his voice cold, a low command that filled the room with tension. His gaze fixed on me, as if daring me to make the first move. But I didn't flinch. I stood tall, my voice calm despite the storm raging inside me. I'm not going anywhere, Julius, I said, my words carrying the weight of everything that had led up to this moment. And neither are you. For a moment, the room was silent, save for the sound of my breathing and the quiet hum of tension between us. Julius studied me with that same calculating gaze he had always had, but I could see it now, the cracks in his carefully constructed world. You think you can threaten me? He asked, his voice dripping with disdain. You think you can just walk in here and take everything from me? I'm not threatening you, Julius, I said, my voice unwavering. I'm taking back what's mine. Everything you've stolen, everything you've destroyed, I will take it back. And I will make sure you pay for it. Julius's lips curled into a twisted smile. You think this is a game? You think you're some kind of hero? You've already lost, Kemi. You're nothing now. You're a woman clinging to a dying empire. That's when I saw it. The fear in his eyes. It wasn't much, but it was enough. He was losing control, and that made him dangerous. But I was no longer afraid of him. I had faced death, betrayal, and poison. There was nothing he could do that would scare me anymore. You're wrong, I said, my voice cutting through the tension in the room like a knife. I've lost nothing. You, on the other hand, are about to lose everything. You'll pay for what you've done to me, to my company, and to the people who trusted you. Tolu took a step forward beside me, her eyes fierce. It's over, Julius. You've been playing a dangerous game, and now the truth is coming for you. I could see the flicker of doubt in Julius's eyes, but it was quickly replaced by rage. He stepped forward, his movements sharp and quick, but I didn't flinch. I didn't move. You're making a mistake, he said, his voice tight with anger. You have no idea what you're dealing with. You think you can stop me? You think you can take me down? We already have, Julius, I said, my words final. It's over. Julius's hand shot out toward the nearest security guard. "Take them out," he ordered. Time seemed to slow as his men lunged forward. But as they moved, I saw something, a shadow in the corner of my vision. Tolu had already slipped a small device from her bag, and with a swift movement, she pressed a button. A high-pitched sound filled the room, sharp and jarring, and the security systems flickered. "Now!" Tolu shouted. In an instant, everything erupted. The security systems, compromised by the device, started malfunctioning. The guards hesitated, their movements sluggish and uncertain, their communications jammed. It was the opening we needed. I grabbed Tolu's hand and pulled her toward the door, shouting for her to follow me. We raced through the halls of the estate, our footsteps quick and determined, but I could feel Julius's presence following us, like a shadow in the dark. He wouldn't give up so easily. He was dangerous, he always had been. "Tolu, the files!" I shouted, my heart pounding in my chest. "We need to get to the files. We need the evidence." Tolu nodded, her eyes wide with determination as we turned down a narrow hallway that led to the study. Frank's estate was filled with expensive furnishings and decorative pieces, but none of it mattered now. Not when the only thing that mattered was taking back what was mine. We burst into the study, and Tolu quickly moved toward the desk, rifling through drawers. I moved toward the wall of locked cabinets that held the most sensitive documents. Contracts, financial statements, everything that could bring Julius down. My fingers flew over the locks, working swiftly with the same precision I had honed over the years. The tension was unbearable. Every sound, every movement felt amplified in the quiet, as though the entire world was watching. Finally, the lock clicked open. I pulled the cabinet door wide, revealing a stack of files and folders. I grabbed them without hesitation, my heart racing. These were the documents we needed, the evidence of everything Julius and Frank had been doing behind my back. The lies, the fraud, the destruction of everything I had worked for. But as I pulled the last file from the cabinet, I heard it. A sound that stopped me in my tracks. The door to the study slammed open. Julius was there, standing in the doorway with a gun in his hand. His eyes were wild with anger, his face twisted in fury. "You think you've won, Kemi?" he spat. "You think you can just walk in here and take everything from me? This is my life. You're nothing." I didn't hesitate. I didn't flinch. "Get out of the way, Julius," I said, my voice steady. "I'm taking what's mine." He stepped forward, raising the gun toward me. But before he could pull the trigger, a loud crash came from behind him. Tolu had thrown a chair across the room, and as the distraction sent Julius's attention away from me, I moved quickly. I lunged forward, grabbing the gun from his hand with a force that surprised even me. The room felt like it was spinning, but I was in control now. I forced Julius to the ground, my hands gripping the gun tightly, my heart pounding in my chest. I couldn't believe it. After everything, I had finally gotten the upper hand. Julius struggled beneath me, his face contorting in rage and fear. "You think you can control this?" he snarled. "You'll never be able to stop me. You're weak. You always have been." I pressed the barrel of the gun against the floor, holding him there. "You're wrong," I said, my voice quiet but fierce. "I'm not weak. I'm not your pawn anymore." Tolu rushed over, her face pale with fear but filled with relief. "Kemi, we need to get out of here. We have the evidence. It's over. They can't hurt you anymore." I nodded, still in shock at how quickly everything had changed. Julius was on the ground, defeated for now. But I knew this wasn't the end. This was just the beginning. We had the evidence, but now we needed to make sure everyone knew the truth. We needed to bring down Julius and Frank for good. Tolu grabbed my arm, pulling me toward the door. "Let's go, Kemi. We need to leave now, before they come after us again." I didn't need to be told twice. As we ran out of the estate, my mind was already racing, already preparing for what came next. This fight wasn't over. Not yet. But for the first time in a long time, I felt like I had control. And I wasn't about to let it go. The escape from Frank's estate was chaotic but calculated. The seconds stretching as we ran for our lives. The heavy thud of our feet hitting the ground seemed like the only sound in the world, drowning out everything else. The faint voices in the distance, the screams of guards scrambling in confusion, the sharp breath in my chest. It felt like I was sprinting through a nightmare, my heart racing in a way I'd never felt before. But there was no time for fear. Not anymore. We were so close to getting everything we needed, the documents and the evidence that could finally put an end to this madness. Frank, Julius, all of them. Their empire built on lies, deceit, and betrayal. But it wasn't enough to just escape with the files. We had to make sure they were exposed to the world. They needed to pay for what they had done. The car was parked in a secluded spot, just far enough away from the estate to avoid detection. Tolu was already in the driver's seat, her hands gripping the wheel with a white-knuckled intensity. I jumped into the passenger side, slamming the door shut and trying to steady my breathing. "We made it," Tolu said, her voice trembling despite the relief in her words. "We actually made it, Kemi." I nodded, still reeling from everything that had just happened. But there was no time for celebration. "Get us out of here," I said, my voice firm. "We've got to get those files to the authorities. We can't stop now." Tolu didn't waste a second. She put the car in gear and pulled away, taking the back roads that led away from Frank's estate. As we drove, I could feel the weight of the documents in my bag, each folder a testament to everything I had worked for, everything that had been stolen from me. "I can't believe it's finally over," Tolu said, her voice low. "After everything we've been through, after all the lies and betrayal, it's finally over." I didn't respond right away. My mind was still processing everything. The relief, the anger, the fear. All of it was a confusing mix that I couldn't quite make sense of. But there was something else too, a sense of victory. I had fought for everything, and now I was finally going to reclaim it. But the fight wasn't over yet. Julius and Frank were still out there, still dangerous. They wouldn't just let me walk away with their secrets. They would come after me just like they had before. And I wasn't naive enough to think I could simply hand over the files and have it end there. "We need to be careful," I said, breaking the silence. "They'll come after us. They won't stop." Tolu shot me a quick glance, her face set with determination. "I know, but we've got the evidence, Kemi. We've got everything we need to bring them down." I nodded, my eyes scanning the road ahead. "We have the truth, but it's not enough to just expose them. We need to make sure they can't run, can't hide. We need to make sure they face justice." Tolu's expression hardened. "We will. I promise." As the miles stretched on, I found myself replaying the events over and over again in my head. The confrontation with Julius, the way Frank had tried to escape, the way they had underestimated me. But what struck me the most was the look in Julius's eyes when he realized he had lost control. For a moment, I had seen something different in him, a glimpse of fear, a glimpse of regret. But that was just a fleeting moment, and it didn't matter anymore. "Where are we going?" Tolu asked, her voice breaking through my thoughts. "To the safe house," I said, my voice tight. "We need to make sure the files are secure before we go to the authorities. We can't risk anyone finding them before we're ready." Tolu nodded. "Got it." We kept driving in silence, the tension between us palpable. I knew she was as anxious as I was, but there was no turning back now. We had the evidence. We had the power to take them down. And then, just as we neared the outskirts of the city, my phone rang. I pulled it from my bag, my heart skipping a beat when I saw the name on the screen. It was Frank. I didn't hesitate. I answered the call, pressing the phone to my ear. "Kemi?" Frank's voice came through, low and cold, the familiar arrogance seeping into every word. "You think you've won, don't you?" I clenched my jaw, fighting to keep my composure. "What do you want, Frank?" "Nothing really," he replied, his tone mocking. "I just wanted to congratulate you. You've done well to get this far. But it's over. You can't hide forever, Kemi. You can't run. We'll find you." My pulse quickened. "You think I'm afraid of you?" Frank laughed, a bitter sound that sent a chill down my spine. "You should be. I know you have the files. And I know you think you've won. But the game isn't over. You'll never get away with this. No one is going to believe you." The line crackled with static, and then, just as suddenly, it went silent. Frank had hung up. I sat there, my grip tightening around the phone. "He knows," I whispered. "He knows we have the files." Tolu's eyes were sharp with concern. "What do we do now?" "We keep going," I said, my voice steady despite the growing panic. "We can't let him scare us. We have to stay focused." Tolu nodded, her expression resolute. "Right. We get to the safe house. Then we go straight to the authorities." We drove in silence after that, the weight of Frank's words hanging in the air between us. But I wouldn't let them break me. Couldn't. The safe house was located in a secluded area, hidden from the world. It wasn't much, just a small cabin that had been set up as a temporary haven for people who needed to disappear. It had been one of my contacts who had arranged it, someone I trusted. We parked the car and slipped inside quickly, making sure no one had followed us. Tolu immediately went to work, securing the files and setting up a secure connection to upload everything we had gathered to the authorities. I watched her work, my mind racing with everything that could go wrong. Frank and Julius weren't going to give up so easily. They would come after us again, just as they always had. But this time we were ready. "We've got the evidence," Tolu said, her fingers flying across the keyboard. "Everything's encrypted and ready to be sent. We're good to go." I nodded, my heart still pounding in my chest. "Send it." Tolu hit the button, and I watched as the files were transmitted. The authorities would have everything they needed to take down Julius and Frank. The world would know the truth. But as the files uploaded, a thought struck me. What if it wasn't enough? What if they didn't believe us? What if Julius and Frank found a way to cover their tracks? I couldn't let doubt cloud my mind. I had come too far. I had fought too hard. Tolu turned to me, her eyes filled with determination. "It's done. We've done everything we can." I took a deep breath, letting the weight of the moment settle over me. It wasn't over yet, but it would be soon. "You're right," I said, my voice steady. "We've done everything. Now we wait." But as I looked at the screen, waiting for the confirmation that the files had been successfully sent, I couldn't shake the feeling that Frank and Julius weren't done. They wouldn't just lie down and accept defeat. They would fight until the end. But I wasn't going to let them win. Not now. Not ever. The waiting was unbearable. Every second felt like an eternity, each moment stretching into the next as I sat in the dimly lit room, staring at the screen. The notification we had been waiting for, confirmation that the files had been securely received by the authorities, was still nowhere to be found. My heart was pounding, my mind racing with every worst-case scenario I could imagine. Tolu sat beside me, her fingers tapping anxiously on the edge of the table, mirroring my nerves. We were both waiting for something that would either end this nightmare or plunge us back into the chaos we had fought so hard to escape. "I don't know how much longer I can keep sitting here like this," I muttered, my voice strained with tension. Tolu gave me a glance, her expression sharp with a kind of resolve that I couldn't seem to muster. "We don't have a choice, Kemi. We did everything we could. Now we just have to trust that the authorities will do their part." I nodded, but I wasn't sure I believed it. The authorities? How many times had people in power let corrupt figures slip through the cracks? Frank and Julius were ruthless. They wouldn't just roll over. They had resources, connections, and a drive to destroy anyone who stood in their way. The phone in my hand buzzed, and I jerked it up, my heart leaping in my chest. A notification from Tolu's encrypted email popped up. I opened it as quickly as I could, barely reading the subject line before clicking on the attachment. The familiar files appeared on the screen, evidence of every transaction, every scheme Julius and Frank had orchestrated. My blood ran cold as I skimmed through the pages. There it was. Proof. Hard, undeniable proof of the fraud, the embezzlement, the underhanded deals. "We've got it," I whispered, the weight of the words crashing down on me. "We've got everything." Tolu leaned over, her breath catching as she saw the files on the screen. "This is it," she said, her voice filled with disbelief. "This is the proof we need to bring them down." But as the words left her mouth, a sharp, violent knock echoed through the door. The sound was like a gunshot in the silence. My heart skipped a beat. "They found us?" I breathed, my hand instinctively reaching for the small pistol I kept hidden in my bag. I had learned to be prepared for everything, even this. Even after all the chaos, the betrayal, and the fear, I had not let my guard down. Tolu's face turned pale, and I could see the panic flicker in her eyes, but she quickly masked it with determination. "We're not going to let them take this from us." I slowly walked toward the door, my breath shallow, every muscle tensed. I glanced back at the screen once more, the weight of the files pressing down on me. It was now or never. The knock came again, louder this time, followed by the sound of footsteps shuffling outside. Whoever it was, they weren't wasting time. I moved quietly toward the back exit, motioning for Tolu to follow. We had to get out of there, to put some distance between us and whoever was coming for us. I heard voices now, muffled at first, but growing clearer. The unmistakable sound of men talking, their words laden with threat. I held my breath, listening carefully. "They're in there," one of the voices said, the words laced with authority. "I'm not leaving without those files." It was Julius. I recognized his voice. Tolu's face went white. "They know," she whispered. "They know we've got the files. We can't let them get them," I said, my voice tight with fear and adrenaline. "We need to get to the car. Now." We moved quickly, silently. My heart was hammering in my chest as we reached the back door. But just as I pulled the door open, the unmistakable sound of a gunshot echoed through the air. "Go!" I shouted, grabbing Tolu's wrist and pulling her outside. We ran toward the car, the pounding of our feet mingling with the rapid beat of my heart. Every step felt like it might be our last, but there was no time to think. We had come too far to let them win now. Just as we reached the car, I heard the sound of boots pounding against the ground behind us. I pushed Tolu into the passenger seat, slamming the door shut. I jumped into the driver's seat, my hands shaking as I turned the key in the ignition. The engine roared to life, and I slammed my foot on the gas, speeding away from the cabin. The headlights of the car flickered as I glanced in the rearview mirror, and for a moment, I saw them. 3 men, armed and moving fast, closing in on us. "We're not out of the woods yet," I muttered, my eyes fixed on the road ahead. "We have to lose them." Tolu was breathing heavily, her hands gripping the seat. "What now, Kemi? What do we do?" "We get to the safe zone," I said, my voice firm despite the panic clawing at my insides. "The authorities will take it from there. We just have to make sure we don't get caught before they can move in." As we tore through the night, my mind raced, replaying every decision that had led us here. Frank and Julius had underestimated us. They had thought they were untouchable, but they didn't realize what they were up against. I had built this empire from the ground up, and no one, not even them, was going to take it from me. Tolu glanced at me, her eyes filled with uncertainty. "Are you sure the authorities will get here in time?" "I'm sure," I said, my voice steady. "They'll find us. They'll make sure this is all over. They have no choice." The road seemed to stretch endlessly ahead of us, but I couldn't let myself stop, couldn't let my guard down. Every twist and turn felt like it might be the one that would lead us into a trap. But I kept my focus, my hands steady on the wheel. Another glance in the rearview mirror, and I saw the car behind us getting closer. They were still gaining ground, but we had a few more miles before we reached the safe zone. We were so close. I took a sharp turn onto a side road, hoping to throw them off. My tires screeched against the asphalt, and for a moment the car skidded, but I regained control and kept going. Tolu didn't say anything, but I could feel her eyes on me, her trust unwavering. I had to get us through this. I couldn't let them take this away from us. We sped on, the distant lights of the safe zone flickering in the distance. The authorities would be there soon. They had to be. And then, as we neared the safe zone, something shifted. A car appeared out of nowhere, pulling in front of us, blocking the road. I slammed the brakes, the tires screeching as I came to a halt just inches from the vehicle. A figure stepped out of the car, a familiar figure. "Get out of the car!" Julius's voice rang out, cold and final. Now! My heart stopped. He had found us. Tolu's breath caught in her throat. "What now?" she whispered, her voice laced with fear. I looked at her, my mind racing.